let me be a homer here. He did a phenomenal job this weekend. Qualified up front, stage points both stages, which is hard, by the way, because you're going to have to come back to the front, and drove back up to 16th. So I thought it was one of the best road course races, probably the best road course race that he's driven. Just came up short. It's just not having any playoff points going into the playoffs. It was always going to be stacked against him every round he started anyways. But I think the maturity he showed during that weekend, the great interview he had after the race, just being, very matter of fact and respectful and very humble. Great job by Bubba and that team, even though they are not moving on. 45 team, they were down below to start the day. They dominated early and knocked Keselowski out. So we got Keselowski's out, Bubba, Chastain, Busch, and any surprises for you there?
No, although it was interesting at the end of the race that Kyle Busch was battling for the race win. And that would have really turned these playoffs on their head because you had Truex, Larson, and Reddick, I believe, were all within 4 or 5 points.
Right. I was watching that too. And I was like, and I was telling the people on the bus, I was like, man, if Kyle wins, I'm looking at, and there was like 5 people within 2 or 3 points. I'm like who would get knocked out we could have a major favorite be knocked out. It could be Larson. It could be Truex. It would have put this whole thing upside down. But yeah, it didn't. I think Kyle gave it really everything he had. They've been top 5 material most all the road courses this year. But you heard in his interview, he said, this is about what we had, right? And I agree with that. I think he drove it to the absolute limit of what it was capable of, and it had nothing else left in the tank. So, his playoffs end, and he even mentioned that, Talladega and Texas are the ones that really caused this to happen, not this one weekend. And I agree with that. Chastain, he gets knocked out. It was interesting. I was watching him at the end of the race because he was making tons of moves towards the front. He pitted like Bubba did, hoping for a caution, got it, and then he drove through the field really, really well. And again, he had 20-some lap advantage on tires, but he was making it interesting because I kept watching the bubble, and it was like, well, he's minus 27. Next thing you know, he's like minus 13, 14. I'm like, man, Truex at that time, he is just struggling. He is just like trying to keep it on the racetrack. And I'm like, man, then you got Busch battling for the lead. Certainly a lot to look at there. And, but there was no real surprises, I guess, from my standpoint, out of this round.
Yeah, I think the change in the playoffs is what most probably predicted going into it, that Reddick would jump Keselowski. If there's going to be any movers between those out and those in, that was going to be the switch because of how well Tyler runs on road courses and how Brad has struggled a bit.
Yeah, for sure. And,
and certainly after the race started, Brad had a penalty, and he had pulled over a few times for a stop and go. So
right.
Not all that surprising.
Yeah, and he hasn't been all that strong on road courses this year. You would say he was kind of the weaker of the kind of bubble guys, or the guys plus or minus that whole group. He had been kind of the weaker of that group. He was the most vulnerable, I guess you could say, and obviously that vulnerability caught up to him. When you got the guy right behind you that start qualifying on the pole, and he's gonna win a stage, it's
right.
going to put tremendous pressure on you to go out there.
In a way, you're already down.
Exactly right. Yeah. And then you look at the Talladega wreck, right? Now he caused it. So,
yep.
That certainly ended his day and put him in that vulnerable spot. Is Coke Zero Sugar the best Coke ever? I know that's a bold question, but it's got that irresistible taste to back it up. Well, when you've got an irresistible match like zero sugar and 0 calories, something sensational is bound to happen. It's like when me and my co-host Jared team up to make a podcast. It's too bad you can't taste with your ears, because Coke Zero Sugar tastes so amazing, it's hard to put it into words. But hey, that's my job, at least on Mondays. You have to taste it for yourself. Coke Zero Sugar, the best Coke ever.
You predicted the Final Four earlier this year. Is your outlook changing now that you know who the round of 8 is?
My prediction was me, Truex, Byron, Larson.
Yep.
Is that what it was?
Yep.
Well, that's chalk right now. Those are the guys above. I don't know. I mean, it'd be hard to argue that. Do I think us 4 will make it? No. I think there'll be someone in the below that will have a good, solid 3 races, or they'll win. But it'd be hard to argue that the top 4 in the standings right now are not the top 4 in performance for the year, right? I mean, just maybe not in the old Winston Cup format, but I'm just saying, just how they're running. Who's a threat? Who are your favorites every single weekend? That's pretty much it, right?
Recently? I mean, Truex has not been a favorite recently.
I know. There's something in my gut that just feels like Truex is just going to fucking turn a switch on and then all of a sudden be Truex.
I'm curious.
I keep waiting.
I asked you this question because I'm most curious.
But he said in his post-race, if you listen, he was like, now we finally get to some freaking tracks that, we can control our destiny. We know what we got. You would say that about Darlington, too, but they had an off weekend there.
Right.
But I still got tons of faith in him and that team. I'm
asking more specifically about a guy like Tyler Reddick. I'm not sure that anyone necessarily predicted that he'd reach the round of 8, but, I mean, we go to a few tracks here, one of which being Homestead. Looking at his career finishes at Homestead in the Cup Series, they're very good.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more.
You tell me. I mean,
I agree. I think he's
a guy now that you need to be worried about in this round of 8.
I certainly think that. Oh, I am. I've said all along, I consider these guys competitors.
Right.
Yes, they drive for me, but I always want to grasp the goal closest to me, and that's to be a Cup champion. Now, I can achieve that this year. I can be, I got plenty of time to be a championship winning owner. So I'm rooting for them to finish second, not to win. I do. I think they're going to be tough. The racetracks, I don't know how it lines up for him, but he's fast. I mean, what can I say? I know their cars are fast. So yeah, it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be. I think it'll be who has mistake-free 3 weeks.
Right.
And then of course, you're going to have a couple lock themselves in at least.
I mean, typically the narrative when we get to these round of 8 races is that you're going to have to win one of them to get into the Final Four.
Yeah,
it's less about points.
At least, you're always going to have one get in on points, obviously, because there's 3 races, 4 spots. But yeah, you have to really be good. And you have to be good all 3. There is no, unless you're going to win, you're right. There's no mulligans now. You got to be on kill these next 3. I think it lines up great for us. We'll see.
Vegas next week. Anything in particular?
No. I look forward to Vegas. I don't always practice well there. Certainly don't always qualify well there, but I always race well. It's like that's my Kansas. That's my Kansas 2.0. It's Vegas. I don't know what it is about the racetrack, but it just seems like it takes me a day to get up to speed there, and I think we'll be good. I do. Mile and a half's been great. Where are we at that Homestead, right?
Homestead, Martinsville.
Yeah, it's a good track. I mean, do I feel as good probably as Larson or Reddick at Homestead? No, I don't. But I feel like I can be kind of the next, Do I think that I'm just going to go there and start running the wall? Good night.
Good night.
Do I think I'm going to start running the wall as good as those guys? No. But late race restart, we're on the bottom. You could pass them and win. So I don't know. I think that it's going to be. I think it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be very close. I think it always comes down to Martinsville. That what happens at the end of the race. But I think this year in particular, with this group of 8, while the favorites are up at the top now, I think it will be hard for all 4 to do it. They've got the advantage, but there's just always someone in the bottom that wins a race that you didn't plan for.
Yeah, looking at Reddick, I think he's the one who could be most likely to do it at a track like Homestead.
I mean, Bell did it last year in Martinsville.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.